This is Today in Esports.
Whether you were building walls on Fortnite or you were catching headshots with AWPs, whatever you were up to this weekend, we got you covered for all the news that you might have missed here on Today in Esports. On the Global Gaming Network channel, as always, my name is Andy. Joining with me is Chris. I know that you got your heads wrapped all over across all the regions during the Rift, man. This weekend was nuts.
Not only the Rift, but also TI going on with the group stage into the elimination. It was just pretty much chaos across the board. But as you said, we also have some shooty shoots to go over. We had some Counterstrike as well with all the Fortnite action going on. So much to go over.
Yeah, we sure do. And we're going to be jumping across as many different countries, cities that you could possibly imagine, starting off with the UK, starting off with London, of course. If you remember last week, we were talking about the group stage that did conclude on Monday for Blast Open London. They had their playoff stage this past weekend in a beautiful arena there in London. That crowd was absolutely electric. They were roaring, but that wasn't the main story throughout all of this. The main story, well, that was G2 Esports. Some of you might remember G2 Esports from back when Monacy was on this team. The buyout that Falcons had was somewhere near like $2 million. They weren't in Grand Finals, but G2 sure were.
They sure were, and take a look at this pistol round opening up for them against FaZe. You know, these are both two teams that have been kind of struggling to get to those Grand Finals and make it past some of these opening rounds. And here it is, G2 opening it up with a great round for them, going into this first map of the Inferno where they would have a strong showing versus FaZe.
Yeah, they sure did. 2-0 versus FaZe here in the final few moments on Inferno. It's going to be a banana push. Not all of the resources in the world. Hunter, the IGL for this team, was having an absolute masterclass as far as calls are concerned. Mattis in this series was also popping off. On Inferno, they were able to win 13-5 on their map pick, and then going in towards the Dust too. This was the final few moments here, just trying to bully their way in towards the site. Just felt really disjointed. That FaZe were just completely and utterly defeated within their camps. Jacob, last player alive, new kid on the block, watched his IGL just eat his way through the window into his death. And there's only so much that the young man can do. G2 Esports, nobody had them beating Spirit back in the group stage. Nobody had them in the playoff bracket alone, making it into the semifinals. But they made quick work of FaZe.
They really did, and they would just continue to go on that run even afterwards. They would next take on Furia after this, going into their next round. And I mean, they looked good going into both of these. That's what we're saying, G2 just coming out on top. FaZe, as we were talking about, Brokey as well, not doing really as well in that match. FaZe really not doing the best. But again, let's jump into this G2 versus Furia matchup to see the domination continue, starting here on round 3, jumping into it once again. And G2 just able to capitalize on all the mistakes that Furia are making right now.
The G2's Inferno is really, really good, man. I mean, they were pretty standardized as far as defense is concerned, but like their forces on the G side were absolutely ridiculous. I think that Furia have been continuously stepping up to the plate and constantly raising the ceiling, if you will, as far as what their performance can look like, even back as far as the Austin Major is concerned. But you go in towards this one, and you got your usual suspects still trying to pop off, like Yakindar trying his best. Caserado was trying to meet the pace as well, but like we were talking about, like Mattis on Inferno, this guy just absolutely is a force to be reckoned with. Throughout all the pushes here, all the way through the banana lane, it's just right into their hands. It's going to be round number 10-1 for G2. They would inevitably win this map 13-5, then going into Mirage, where they would seal the deal with a 2-0 win.
Yeah, Mirage, once again, just coming out strong, having a much easier time closing out this second map versus Furia than they had versus FaZe on theirs. Here we go, see them moving up. You're trying to make a move, but you have 4 members of this G2 team just waiting. There's the headshot at the end, and once again, you can see Heavy God getting up the pop-off, rightfully so. Just these 2 dominant matches back-to-back for G2.
Yeah, we're going to continuously talk about Heavy God. You'll learn here just in a few moments' time. But Sun Pius definitely deserved his flowers as far as that series is concerned. Very tough matchup going up against Maladoy, who's constantly raising the stakes as far as what an AWP can do on the map. But Sun Pius was constantly making really good efforts throughout that series. 2-0, only giving up 10 rounds in total through 2 maps, which means that G2 Esports for the first time in I don't even know how long, are in a grand finals of a CS event, and they're going up against Vitality. They won the opening map of Dust2 13-3, lost Vitality's pick on Mirage 13-6, Overpass went to G2's way 16-12 in overtime, and here's the final few moments of Inferno, where G2 Esports would force a map 5 on Train.
Yeah, and we're talking about both of these teams. Vitality, though, finally getting back to grand finals after missing it a few times, and then once again dropping the ball. We're taking a look at here, going back to map number 3, which was that overpass that they lost. And the fans are kind of showing their allegiance to G2 there with the anti-France flag. But here it is, coming back to the end onto map number 5 on this train into the last round here, as we see G2 just setting it up, getting the bomb planted, and there it is. Hunter with the swing, getting Apex and Robs.
Every single top plays that I continuously create, Hunter's always on there for like a 1vx situation. That's your freaking IGL for G2 Esports, who is constantly just put in the clutch and then delivers on the goods. Flames last alive, Hunter, hands in the air. G2 Esports, your Blast London champions. Heavy God's your MVP. Mattis in this series dropped 77 frags, plus 10. The only player to go positive on the other side, of course, it would be the Esports PC Player of the Decade of Zywoo, but cannot individually carry this team of Vitality, not when G2 Esports are playing this good. Their teamwork, cohesion, other buzz phrases, absolutely on fleek.
Yeah, and as you were talking about earlier, they had traded off Monacy, this amazing player, and now they're making the run upwards, and you're just going to see they're finally getting some of those games under their belt. They had some of the last tournaments they had were kind of shaky, but leading into this one, looking really good. And then facing off against a Vitality team who has not made it to the grand finals, but when they have, they've been beating everyone, and this time it was G2 came out on top.
I think what's most interesting from the G2 Esports perspective, we continuously talked last week, especially for Team Liquid's fall from grace, where like they're not going to be able to make an impact for their VRS rankings. This is massive going for G2 Esports. Like they were behind FaZe, I think somewhere in like the mid to later teens as far as the rankings are concerned. Beat FaZe, that's massive VRS rankings. Beat Fudia as well, that puts them in the steps direction. And then you just beat World's #1 as far as rankings are concerned. After beating Spirit, you're back-to-back LAN champion. So yeah, G2 Esports stonks are certainly on the up and up. What do you guys think about this? Do you think that more teams are going to try to walk in towards the back end for G2 Esports to buy out some of their players? Maybe Mattis could be up on the chopping block. That guy had an absolute electric series, but fantastic Blast London event. Big shout outs to all involved, and of course to G2 Esports off of their championship win. But as Chris was already alluding to, as far as the tournament's concerned from this past weekend, we had some Fortnite to be talking about. Copenhagen was going crazy with some build.
We really did, and it's the Fortnite World Champion. They're coming in massive, $2 million prize pool on the line. And guess what? We're in Copenhagen, so the EU team said we're going to dominate day one, #1. And that's a lot of pressure going on to a lot of these NA teams coming in. But it is into the world's best top 50 players for duos. We're going to jump off into some of the matches here. And once again, it has grown a lot since we've seen it in its initiation here, but look at these two going out, the victory royale for these players coming out, and it's just massive that we're going into this. As we said, EU massively big on day #1. NA just kind of struggled a bit though.
Yeah, I mean, NA, we're nowhere near the leaderboard until you get to top 5 here. We'll see towards the end of this tournament. For all intents and purposes, if you're unfamiliar with Fortnite, you have a lot of individuals creating a triage of a team, all representing different organizations. So the championship team, you had 2 Gentlemates members as well as one representing 4 Twisted Minds. And yeah, the European Masterclass was very much so a continuation going in towards the conclusion here. Got Queasy, Maristache, and Swizzy. They were the team that were constantly up top of the leaderboards. 47 frags in a single day is absolutely insane. As we get down towards the final few moments of this day, they would continue on their winning ways. They won so much early on, Chris, that it felt like that their lead was insurmountable to come back from.
Yes, and we're taking a look at a Ukrainian trio here, just coming out massively big. They're trying to go on Polish legends. We have Kami alongside Seti and Jivko also in the hunt, and they're trying to leverage their years of experience to come in here. But again, we're just looking at both of these teams, and we're taking a look at 3 different teams going into this final circle on the build here, just coming out massive with this win.
Yep. Again, Fortnite builds. I truly have not seen this much on my screen in quite some time. Been so obsessed with the no build game mode. I did forget that it existed for quite some time. But these championship series always go absolutely wild. And even these final few moments, sharing whatever shields possible. Here's the last player potentially to try to make something happen. Just eats their way in towards the fight, but doesn't have the HP advantage. And yeah, finally able to put that one to rest. But in towards the final game, we will go. And although all the stakes were certainly high, it was only going to be one team that was going to hoist the trophy at the end of the day. The #1 team of Swizzy, Wheezy, and Marestatch would end up solidifying themselves as the #1 team here in Copenhagen.
Yeah, and great look at them. You see on the high ground versus the low ground here, trying to find their way into the final circle, but it will be eliminating Cooper at the end, taking that final win. As you can see on the end there, looking a little bit lost on their win, maybe not sure about the points coming out for the very end, but they will finally crown their champion. As you said, Sweezy, Quizzy, and Marshash taking that win and lifting that trophy, that trio there, doing absolute work this whole entire tournament.
Yeah, in that last game, like they got like somewhere near like 14th again. Like they got like 5 wins within like the first 7 games. So it's just like at that point, like their point lead was just so far gone that you just felt like they could just put up the consistent 5 points, which they did in about like the last 5 games. Then you're going to be fine so long as you just thank the bus driver on your way out. So big thanks to all of Fortnite to continuously showcase all of their talents and abilities of what the top notch of that team may look like. But what's the future going to be looking like for Fortnite Esports? Now, during the entire broadcast, they actually came out with a fantastic announcement talking about what the future of the esport will end up looking like. They came out with a roadmap of 2026. Fortnite Esports aren't going anywhere. You know, ever since Bogo was able to win that Fortnite championship ever so long ago, we know that Fortnite was definitely going to be a staple as far as BR championships are concerned, and they're going to be taking that in towards the game as well. With Rank 2.0, you at home, whether you want to be testing your metal there on the main stage or think that you can do it with the best there in trios, will get your best chance to be able to do so in that Rank 2.0. But all these promises are going to be a massive, complete overhaul. We can expect for all these changes to continuously come through with Pro-Am tournaments and $1 million Pro Series mobile tournaments as well, Chris. Fortnite continuously on the up and up.
On the up and up. It's not only those skins coming in, but they are releasing to that competitive scene as well. So if you want to get on that Pro-Am, or if you want to find your way into the mobile, take out your phone, take out your tablet, have a good old time, because there's a lot coming to you in 2026. If you haven't seen that roadmap, make sure you check it out on Epic Games or on Steam for Fortnite.
Should be a very fun time. Again, we'll be talking about Fortnite as it continues to march its way into our libraries. But we're going to be go ahead and shifting our focus now over towards a little bit more of strategy involved. At League of Legends, Chris, is where we're going to be tailoring our conversation. And if you missed all of our conversations last week, LTA North-South finally came to a conclusion as far as their playoffs are concerned. LTA North had an absolute crazy run through this past week, and it was 100 Thieves.
It was 100 Thieves. 100 Thieves on the heist to try to make it to their way to that championship. If they can make it to that grand finals and beat FlyQuest, then they would make their way to Worlds. But this time it would be FlyQuest stopping the heist and putting it in the 100 Thieves runs as they want to solidify their ticket to Worlds 25 here. We're going to take a look at Bwipo, the series MVP, coming out clutch in this game #1. On to Dokla, the Ambessa, the 1v1 of the top laners in the bottom lane. This time, though, Bwipo just had an absolutely amazing series, though. He came out on top against Dokla, who's been off very hot in these runs, as Andy had said, through the playoffs that we saw here. This time, though, on the Aatrox in game #3, is going to go ahead and tower dive versus 2 towers here. Going to pop that world ender and just say, guess what? I'm taking you guys down.
If there's one thing that Bwipo's never short of, it's swagger. And when he has an advantage in his lane, he will continue to push that. But when you go in towards this final game, even on the red side, 1-3 Gragas, but he was constantly getting so much assistance from Inspired. The 10-1 Trundle constantly just farming the Aurora up top, or the Gwen, excuse me. Yeah, I'm feeling real good about that one. FlyQuest completely dismantle all of 100 Thieves, and even at the end, Bwipo thought maybe Dokla was going to give him fist bump. Nah, not going to be the case. He stands on business.
He stands on business indeed. No fist bump during the flags being taken out. No fist bumps at the end. But guess what? It is Bwipo who's going to be hosting that trophy here at the end with FlyQuest. They are going to be taking that win and making sure that they head into Worlds. But remember, they will be playing in the LTA Championship versus the LTA South teams in Texas in a few weeks' time here, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Let's go ahead and jump into LTA South, as they have also crowned their first winner going into Worlds, and that would be Keith Stars. They had an absolutely massive run going into this as well. They came in and just dominated. I mean, absolutely dominated every single team in that playoff run. Facing off versus Red here, and I mean, this was pretty much the most dominating game I have seen this weekend and in a grand finals for the playoffs here. I mean, 3-0 in these first couple games. Keystar just did not let off the gas at all.
No, they did not. Vivo Keystars again making the Worlds appearance. Very excited to be able to see that. I know that one of queued up member of J-Dog would also be very excited to be able to see it, because Trimby, as far as the support is concerned, that kid's nuts. And I think that there's one thing that's going to be constantly setting up this team for success. It's not just their hyper carries, but it's also their enablers as well.
Yeah, and it was Morthus, Mew on these two carries, as you were saying, just absolutely dominated the field. We saw that triple kill from They Call It earlier, and then Morpheus with that big misfortune ult, setting up additional kills for his team to end out this game number 3, which was probably the closest game that we saw. They're lifting that trophy there. Absolute cinema from them, and probably coming into this LTA championship as one of the best teams. FlyQuest is going to have their work cut out for them when they play each other in that upper bracket finals before going into the grand finals. But as you can see here, the LTA playoffs are set. FlyQuest versus Pete Stars, 100 Thieves versus Pain, Red versus SR. But remember, those top 2 teams are already qualified for Worlds. We are just playing for seeding now. And then those lower matches on matches 1 and 2, we'll have to see out of those 4 teams who will be able to grab that 3rd slot and see if maybe they can take a game off of one of their winners from their respective conferences going into the next couple of games. So we should have the rest of the teams ready to go for LTA heading into the next couple of weeks to see who our representatives will be heading into Worlds. But that's not all. LEC did also have its first, sorry, I can't words right now, but they found their first representative for the LEC going into Worlds, and yes, that would be G2. I'm getting my words all mixed up here, but let's take a look at G2, who has been absolutely dominating the scene going into the LEC since split number 3 has started.
LEC's housing favorite of Caps in the mid lane. Wouldn't be Worlds without him at the end of the day. G2 Esports, again, coming in towards this one versus Carmine Corp, was a series that you and I were really pointing to keep an eye out for, whether there's going to be one team to maybe give them a fair shake. Probably would have been Carmine Corp, especially in the early goings of things here. But Caps here on the rise pick going in towards this game number 3. Definitely had his presence being felt, but I'm not going to lie, man. Skewmon throughout all of this probably would be the highlight as far as the series MVP is concerned.
Yeah, definitely, and his smites were on point this weekend. I was going to see just taking the Otacon, but he did it all. Onto the volley bear here is going to go ahead and jump onto this tower, but he said, guess what? I'm going to turn off your next tower after we take this one with the ultimate so we can secure 2 kills, then move our way over to winning this game and securing this series. Again, Skewmon, as you said, just absolutely been a blast since MSI. He's been leveling up this whole entire time. Caps, Hansama have been able to work off of him. Broken Blade has looked amazingly good. And this is a G2 team that is going to strike fear into the hearts of everyone, not only in the playoffs, but also moving into Worlds.
Now you can see everybody just completely elated. They know what this victory was going to mean for them. And the 3-1 win over Carmine Corp means that they will face the winner of MKOI and Fnatic in the upcoming match. In the lower bracket, though, continuing on, Vitality, Giant X able to win out versus their adversaries. They're going to continue to play on as the LEC bracket roars on throughout this.
Yeah, and it's going to be today. We're going to get our second representative for LEC as that match concludes today between FNC and as well as MKOI. So be on the lookout for that. We'll bring you all that information next week as well, though.
And if you want to continue to get information, we're going to be talking more about that on Queued Up. It releases on Thursday and Friday. We talk a lot about League of Legends on that Thursday episode and Counterstrike, especially on that Tuesday episode. So you want to make sure you subscribe to the Global Gaming Network channel so that you can get into the know-all for all of our nerds here behind the scene talking about our beloved esports. But speaking of beloved esports across the entirety of the world, albeit League of Legends may be in a lot of your offices, Dota 2 has been a global phenomenon, and as Chris was talking about in the introduction, TI was this past weekend.
Yeah, it was this past weekend. We went through group stages and elimination stages, and as elimination goes, we saw some heavy hitters get taken out from TI running this week to go into the main event. that will be starting on later on the 11th. And we'll go ahead and jump into the first elimination match, which we saw Heroic take a win here versus Yakutu Brothers. And Yakutu Brothers were an invited team from China that came in off of Gaming Gladiators, but they just couldn't find enough to find the win here. And let's take a look at this. Carry from Yuma on this Meepo, just amazing catch out on to a couple of the members. He was amazing across this whole entire series. He actually played the Meepo twice. Overall KDA with a 32, 2, and 19, but we can just see the prowess of him here, setting up this fight, getting the initial kill, then working with that Earthshaker from Fly, getting the Medusa, getting the kill. But let's move on to the next one. We had Nigma versus Aurora in the second match. Nigma started off strong. They had wins versus BB. But unfortunately, they ended up falling a little bit, having to come into this one. But let's take a look at Sumal. Sumal, a big name from former EG, coming out with the Shadow Fiend. Massive catch on the 2 here with that ultimate, ultimately leading to this win here. Just a massive plays by him. We know his mid is almost unparalleled in terms of team fighting. He finds the front, the Batrider tries to drag him, but it doesn't matter as the rest of his team allowed him to get the win. Next, we jump into P-Vision versus Wildcard, and we were talking about Satanic on our power rankings. Let's take a look at him here. Is going to be able to kill the Roshan, picks up the Aegis, and then just moves into dominating everyone on this anti-mage. He was absolutely electric. He would go 13, 0, and 9, and then on game number 2, he would play the Faceless Void, ended up going 8, 1, and 9 as well there. Overall KDA 21, 1, and 18. We move on next to Tundra versus Team Liquid, and Tundra, one of our other heavy hitters, versus Liquid, the TI winners from last year. Both of these teams not wanting to lose out here, but it would be Tundra coming up big off of a double buyback. They allow the Invoker to come back up and get 2 double kills here from BZM. Just that his Invoker was a great on both that game, and then on game number 3, the Queen of Pain going 9, 1, and 9 despite losing on the Monkey King. Still had a pretty good KD of 6, 7, 11. But in our last game, the biggest heavy hitter we had here was Team Spirit versus Team Falcons. Both of these teams really we didn't expect to see here, but here we are. One of them has to be eliminated, and eventually it would be Team Spirit going down. Utaro just not enough to take down the Sand King from Marlin here on this. I mean, look at that. In the burrow, into the epicenter, onto 3 of them here, just absolutely decimating their whole entire team and taking out everyone, allowing his team to secure 4 kills in this game number 2. They cleaned that up really easily, and we'll move on to that main event. And these main event, we're going to talk about this a little bit later on our what's to come, but the main event is going to look great. We have teams such as Extreme coming out of China with that 4-0 in that group stage. We have a lot to look out for.
Champions is upon us. I'm talking about Valorant, of course, as we're going to be packing our bags very, very soon over towards Paris. A lot of competitions happening in France these days. I'm not going to lie. It's a beautiful country. It's a good household for a lot of European countries to congregate together for the loving that is esports. But before we continue to talk more about the teams and what we could expect as far as those opening matchups are concerned, we got to talk about the news completely surrounding the Valorant Champions Tour. Completely and utterly talking about the bombshell that is coming through from the EMEA region. Riot has just announced that they are completely terminating their partnership with Koi as far as Valorant is concerned. I don't know if that stems over towards League. They are in both, as well as the Call of Duty League, completely different entity, but completely caught them by surprise going in towards the 2026 season, and due for the reasons they said that, in quotes, that they had a breach of contract. That one of their COOs even coming towards Twitter and organization owners as well, to be saying that they're very confused as the entire aspect, and they're not really sure what's in the future for this organization.
Yeah, and we'll have to see what goes on with that. As you said, it could impact League as well. But again, you're talking about the roster apocalypse has begun. The teams that aren't heading to champs, well, guess what? They're already trying to figure out what they're going to be doing for next year. Team Livitas has signed a major rebuild. They're allowing stars like Calm, Tex, and across to explore other options right now.
Yeah, big, massive stuff for Leviathan, especially when you're thinking from Com's perspective. That's actually a champion winner back with Evil Geniuses, back when Busio, before he had Tattoo. So you really got to think about that one. Other notable teams looking to make changes would be Crew Esports, BBL Esports. We're starting to part ways with players. BBL Esports, of course, from the EMEA region. And then you got Crew Esports there from North America. A true legend of the game, Angel, out of Navi, has also announced that they are retiring from professional play. So a big shout out to them for all their decorated career in tactical shooters, but who knows, might be a coach sometime soon.
Yeah, and another superstar duelist, Turkish star Sined, is now restricted, not unrestricted, restricted free agent. So we're gonna have to see what's gonna happen with him outside of Foot Esports. Definitely gonna want to make sure that they have, really good income for him if they do end up trading him or allowing him to go somewhere else. But also we have MVP Demon has signed with Dragon Rangers Gaming.
Yeah, Demon 1, he's now doing it again. We talk about the 2023 Champions pair, or the Champions MVP Demon 1 from that Evil Geniuses roster. He was struggling to be able to find a home. He was on Leviathan for a little bit throughout this stage, got dropped from there. And now he's joining a Chinese team, and he's going to be joining them in Champions pairs. So very interesting to be able to see how Demon 1 will be fitting in towards this roster. I wonder how his Mandarin is these days. But as we continue to get ourselves more and more prepared with baguettes in towards our bags, we're going to get ourselves set up for Champions Paris. 16 teams are going to be locked across the entirety for the global power rankings. You can end up watching ours, which will end up being released very, very soon on the 10th of September, so that you can get our knowledge about where the power rankings might be located at. But here are the groups and how things have shaken up as far as the 4 regions are concerned.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit on our last hype, but man, some of these groups are absolutely insane. We're taking a look at them, and I don't really see a group of death. I mean, they're all scary in their own ways, especially taking a look at Group A, in which our opening match will be that Paper X versus Sentinels, crowd favorites from both sides there. I mean, that's going to be absolutely electric opening.
EWC champions of Team Heretics, Demon 1 joining Dragon Ranger Gaming. T1 are your champions from Bangkok, as well as G2 are the biggest Silver Surfers. If there's one group of death, I'm probably looking at that Group D. It's even labeled as so. But even like you got so many household favorites across the board, like Sentinels back in towards another group with XLG. We saw that back in Masters Toronto as well. That's just going to be a very, very fun time to be able to see how that one all shakes out. But Champions Paris will end up, we're going to be starting off that very, very soon. So you want to make sure that you are tailoring your way towards any sort of news outlet in here for the Global Gaming Network channels. We continue to bring you more and more updates, especially for those power rankings. But even throughout all of this, as we prepare for 2025, Riot Games is already preparing for the future, because we know that they love to do so. They've already come out with a series of announcements of what Valorant is going to look like in the future.
Yes, and one of that is going to be championships will be held in Shanghai, China. We're not only going to China for Worlds and League of Legends this year, but now we're going back to it for World or Champions for Valorant next year, and it's going to be absolutely electric. We've seen how much work that they put into a lot of these events, so we know that for Valorant it's going to be just as amazing. If you haven't seen the release for their 1-year anniversary for Valorant, you should take a look, because those drones went crazy. Yeah,
no, they absolutely did. Shanghai will be our next destination, completing the world tour that is known as Valorant Champions, completing a ring around the entire world, where we're talking about going to cities like Istanbul, on top of Berlin. We were in LA, Seoul, and then now in Paris as well. The Champions Tour continuously is on the up and up. Cannot wait to see what that championship looks like in Shanghai, China. But maybe you might find yourself up on that main stage. The only way that you're going to be able to do it is if you download and get into the weeds with the world's #1 aim trainer called Aim Labs. Here is a word from our sponsor.
Games are about competition, a way to test our skill and prove we are better. Challenge is in our nature. We need to know what we're capable of. How far can we go? It's a question that drives millions of gamers to push themselves and prove that it's only a matter of sheer will. Ever since first-person shooters came into the esports scene, players have never stopped defying the odds through the most important mechanic of them all: aim. Aim is everything. It's a set of skills that needs to be trained, and this is where science and gaming meet in Aim Labs, the aim trainer that redefines what gaming means, because science doesn't leave anything to chance. Winning is never a matter of luck. Every brief moment of greatness takes constant and unrelenting preparation, and that's exactly what AIM Labs is about. We enable players to thrive and upset the balance. Together, we elevate play.
Well, staying in the Riot sphere, we're heading back over to League of Legends, but this time we're jumping across multiple ponds to get over to the East. As yes, we do have more playoffs, play-ins happening in the Eastern conferences. We have LCK starting off. Their play-ins have finally finished, and we do have our teams heading into playoffs here. But we'll take a look at some of those that were able to make it into the playoffs here from that Rise group, and it will be DK moving into that, BFX also moving into it as well. Both of these teams were able to qualify for the playoffs. But a big one, though, is DK taking down Nonshim Red Forest. And wow, Diable, what a play from this AD carry. They're coming out massive. They came in second in that group here, came out against the this team of Nonshim Red Forest. They didn't expect them to win, but here it is. They're doing a massive team here. BRX massively coming out, taking the win versus Nonshim and moving into that playoff position.
Every single advantage within the early 15 minutes of this game was for Nonshim Red Forest. It just continuously came through for a lot of overextensions for the series that I was watching, half glazed over as far as my sleep deprivation was concerned. But I don't know, it just felt like that Nonshim Red Forest had every single stake in this to potentially win. BFX just absolutely punished them.
Yeah, and Diable, as I said, just massively big in this series here, coming out for his team. On this Ezreal, just look at him, the positioning here and being super aggressive with it. But again, Nonshim struggled a bit in that Legend group. And then BFX, although second in the Rise, have really come out strong, able to take down this team that's been playing against multiple Legends, as you would call them, Gen.G, HLE, and T1 in that force. But we take a look at the playoff seeds here. It would be T1 picking up DK in their match, and then it would be KT who would be facing off against BFX. And you can definitely see why T1 probably chose DK in that, if they're seeing the BFX doing such a great job against that Nonshim Red Force team. You would definitely imagine them picking the weaker of the team. That did look like DK, but now we're going to be moving on to the LPL. We finally had some of our playoff matches start, and BLG, who's been swapping junglers different lottery ticket numbers you can see coming out here, decided to move off of Shadow and onto Beichuan after their initial loss to JDG. They would end up losing game number 2, but starting into game number 3 here, Beichuan helping his team immensely in this game. Not the highest kills, but 41 assists, overtaking On as well as the highest assist in the game. That's after missing one game as well. We take a look at that Nocturne. Now he's playing the Morgana, pulling out this kind of niche pick, gets the root on to the Sejuani, and they're allowed here to clean up the rest of JDG. They'll take that game number 4 and on to game number 5. Silver straights here for both of these teams. And well, you're on the Dragon, you're fighting. Guess what? Yeah, he's going to secure the soul for them once again here on that Poppy. They'll move out of this fight and end up winning this fight as well. So right now we're showing that roster of the Shadow and Beichuan being used to his full effect here from BLG. IG would end up winning against EDG as well. And then earlier today, Weibo Gaming did end up beating AL. So we have a lot of those games moving across. They'll be playing across the entirety of the week. So we'll have more updates for you, as he said, later on this week when we do have our queued up MOBA episode for League of Legends, as well as next week when we take a look at the remaining of the games that have accumulated across for the LPL. But LCP has finally found its second Worlds representative. And yes, that will be nothing but PSG talent. PSG coming out of the woodworks here and upsetting GAM in their round number 2 match to qualify for Worlds here. Maple coming out of retirement in July to help this team make Worlds. And despite falling into that contenders bracket earlier in split number 3, they have come out with force here, beating Vikings in round number 1, and then as well as beating GAM here in round number 2. They will join CFO. But again, just take a look at this team. They look so good going into this round number 2.
Maple 6-3-9 on the Talia, 9-1-11 on the Aurora. I mean, 15-4-20. That's some quick maths out of you. If you want to talk about immediate impact to be felt, it's definitely what you need going forward. They're going to be going up against the Flying Oysters next, I believe, off of this win. So you're going to need a little bit more of that, you would definitely argue, because like GAM compared to CFO, as far as the scales are concerned, have always been completely competitive between one another. The fact that PSG were able to win this as decisive as they were, 2-0, is a statement ahead of their CFO matchup.
Yeah, and this team already heading to Worlds. We'll have to see who gets on top between them. CFO will be really big on this team between both of them, but take a look at them. Look how happy they are, again, qualifying for Worlds once again. And as he alluded to, that round number 4, we see a CFO, PSG Khan, and then we will have GAM awaiting the winner of Team Secret Wales and the Vikings there to see who will move on with that, because there is one more seed from the LCP that will be allowed to move on, and whoever can win between that round 4 game will move on to the next one.
LCP is a very fun time. You're going to want to make sure that you watch as many of those highlights as possible, or you just join us this upcoming Thursday and Friday for the discussions on Queued Up MOBA. Chris will be hosting that alongside J-Dog, Cap, and Eli. Definitely want to be watching out for that one. And speaking of Eli, we got to get a little bit of an update coming away from the young man himself, because a Halo Championship Series continue to kicking things off. We're on the road towards the next LAN. We're on the road towards a championship conclusion for Halo as a whole. So let's throw it over to Eli as an update from this past weekend.
Thanks, guys. The HCS Charlotte qualifier just finished, and the action was absolutely insane. Let's go ahead and watch some of the clips from this weekend. So first, starting out, here is our bracket. We had TSM versus Complexity on one side and Envy versus Cloud9 on the other. We're going to focus on Envy versus Cloud9. Game 5 of this series goes to 49-49. Somehow, Yaxin stays alive. Precision gets the double kill. This series could not have been closer. Ultimately, Envy punched their ticket into the winners finals, where they would find TSM, and in Game 3, Piggy absolutely took over with the sniper. Here he gets another no-scope body shot. And then at the very end of it all, this was the kill that sealed the deal so they could get the 4th hill captured. Now, on the other side of the bracket, on the lower end, Cloud9 would begin their run. They defeated Omit, Complexity, and then would face off against TSM. Here we tune in Game 3. It's tied 2-2. Avicii has the sniper. No scope to the dome for the double. Make it a triple. That's going to secure the OS for Sab so that he can advance forward and grab the flag. But Avicii was not done yet. He also got a few more snipes to close this game and also close this series 3-0 against TSM. Cloud9 would then advance to the grand finals, where they would get their rematch against Envy. And Game 1 started off with some heat. Descendant with the sniper, couple disgusting no scopes to start things off, but Collect would get his revenge as he would get a couple no scope body shots. Guess what time it is, by the way? The perfect time to get a double kill, as your team has a trip cap and is about to finish scoring to close out the game. Game number 1 would go to Cloud9 after the heroic play out of Collect, 250-234. As we take a look at the series layout, you can see that they would then go into live fire Slayer. Guess what? A Slayer, it's going to the distance once again, 49-48. And they cannot kill Yaxin. He finally goes down, but Precision gets the pancake? We gotta watch that again. Precision with the repulse, repulses him into the wall. He dies to the wall damage. That's the first time I've ever seen a pancake for the 50th kill. It's 50-49 in Envy's favor as they have tied up the series. Aquarius Bomb would be the next game mode. They're already up 2-0 at this point. Boo Boo Dubu just trying to protect his bomb carrier so that he can arm the bomb once again for the 3rd capture and close this game out. He does slow down the spawners for long enough, and Cloud9 get the quick 3-0 sweep on Assault. They would then, spoiler alert, go along to win Origin CTF as well, 2-0 to force the Grand Finals reset. Game 1 in the Grand Finals reset would also be intense. It's 3-3. Cloud9 have control. Envy only need a few seconds, but Cloud9 have the entire map. Boo Boo Dubu has the camo and is just trying to play gatekeeper while his teammate accumulates hill time. But guess what? Envy, they just sneak in from right under his nose. They get a couple kills. They sneak in. They steal the last hill, and they'll take a 1-0 lead at the beginning of the Grand Finals reset. Going into Game 2, it's a Slayer. Of course, it's coming down to the wire. once again. These two teams could not be any closer. Cloud9 had a massive lead. Envy rallied back with an insane comeback, but ultimately could not close it out as Bubudubu would finally get the last kill, so Cloud9 could breathe a sigh of relief. That was a close one. And I think Precision took that personally. This is how he starts game 3. The quick scope headshot into the no scope double kill. And he's not done yet. Hits the skill jump off of the screens. So you can get this next one onto Avicii. Predicted kid. Go back to the respawn screen, and then he would ultimately get the last kill as well with the oddball, of course. I mean, what other weapon would you want to use to close out an insane series? That would bring us to game number 4. Keep in mind, these two teams have played 9 games against each other just going into this series. Ultimately, Cloud9 would win game 4 to force the 14th game that these teams would play against each other in the tournament. Everything on the line. Finally, it's a Slayer that's not close. Envy dominated from the very beginning. At the end, Piggy tries to land the plasma pistol shot, but doesn't need to. The rest of the team would push through on the loop side to get that last kill. Envy become your Charlotte qualifier champions, which earns them a spot in Pool D. These would ultimately be your placements for the tournament. Those top 6 would feed into these pools here. So looking at the pools, Envy very happy to have won this tournament. They're going to have a somewhat easier pool than the rest. Pool C looks like the pool of death to me. FaZe, Cloud9, and the artist formerly known as Nemesis, the best team out of Europe. So it's going to be insane. Charlotte, like I said, begins October 3rd. The LVT Pro League, though, starts this Friday. We've got Envy and SSG, and FaZe versus Complexity will be the beginning part of the bracket on Friday. It's going to be a banger in Los Angeles for $50,000. You guys won't want to miss it. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. Back to the desk.
Thanks, Eli. Hopefully next time we're going to be able to get you an iron for those shorts, man. Looking bleak out there, man. But regardless, yeah, Halo is absolutely roaring on. I think that you're looking forward to the LVT Pro League like he was talking about. That's going to be our hint of what we're going to be seeing for LAN coming around for HCS Charlotte, which again is happening in October. And then, of course, when we do inevitably get over towards Worlds. But on a week-to-week basis, you want to tune back in for Eli. The hecking ninja will end up being here giving us all the updates for Halo as he gets back from the LVT Pro League. But speaking of one controller-based esport, we're going to be talking about another one as well. Call of Duty is back in towards the spotlight as far as roster media is concerned. We're now in that tenured spot where some players are going to be signing contracts and some organizations are going to be playing around with the idea to solidify these players before contracts end up going towards other teams.
Yeah, we'll have to see what's going here, but we're also talking about Draza going out, staying with FaZe for that 3rd season here, saying goodbye to BZ and Celium. Simp, though, going to be staying with FaZe to stay with that duo with Draza to continue on the run. We'll have to see how they go into BO7.
Yep, so here's Draza sitting down saying, might as well run it back, right? He's going to be sitting there as the 1, if not 2 players. Again, Simp hasn't been fully announced that he'd be returning back, but you would imagine that Simp isn't going to be going anywhere as far as the poster child for Atlanta FaZe is concerned. He'll have his AR duo, long time coming for Simp and Draza to try to create this team and some new narratives around them. What other players will be joining them? Well, as far as the rumors are concerned, seems that it might be O4 and Abusa. But back in towards the spotlight again, 100 Thieves owner of Nadeshot is here discussing some financial woes in the bigger picture for 100 Thieves and some of the pay cuts that he has to take personally behind the scenes just to see if his team will stick around. This was back in 2023 just to make sure that both Scrap and Hydra were sticking around.
And we're taking a look at the Rubet shining with Nadeshot himself. But hear what he has to say.
Very expensive, and at a certain point, we were making money from the cases, man. I'm just going to be honest with you, but very quickly, it turned into not making money. But when the fine folks at Rubet saw how much of a degenerate gambler I was, they were like, "We got to get your ass on here immediately." And I said, "Bro, I need to get on there immediately just as much."
Yeah, so you can have it right here, the opening stream for Boobet here on Kick for Nadeshot. The chat was only showing all of their love, admiration, and support court. But and mostly saying, hey, get out of here, gamer. You're not a true gambler. But I've seen this guy open up CS cases. I beg otherwise.
Yeah, it has. But unfortunately, though, on the opposite end, we're taking a look at some layoffs from 100 Thieves. And taking a look here, they've had a plethora of layoffs going on. We're talking about those financial woes, and this is the result of said. And just hope that they land on their feet. But again, 100 Thieves also exiting the LTA North here from League of Legends. Might have to do with some of that as well. We'll have to see where the org goes from now on.
Still have a Valorant team. They're very much so still sticking around as far as Call of Duty is concerned. It would be weird not to see the 100 Thieves logo in both of those two esports as we continue to break down the stories. We'll keep you updated on every single episode going through from Monday. But just because Roster Mania is happening on one esport title doesn't mean that the other ones are going to be shying away from it as well. Counterstrike 2 is back into the discussion. Before we start talking about all the Roster Mania news, some pretty breaking news is actually coming through specifically for Russian-born players. If you're unfamiliar, it's been reported that Russian players are considering not attending all U.S. events due to global politics and issues traveling to the USA. This could be issues for many individual players, as well as expected to impact Chinese players within the future if they cannot get their visa sorted.
Yeah, and it would be such a shame because we have such big players, Donk, and as well as many other teams having those big players come because we know they can draw that crowd, especially having them play in a lot of these tournaments. But another conflicting goes with PGL and ESL conflicting dates, and as well as ESL threatening to ban some of the teams that might be considering to play at both of the events at the same time. So some of this chaos ensuing for both of these, we'll have to see if the teams decide to stick with one or the other. And maybe if we can finally have them, find a way to find some peace and have their times not conflicting with one another.
ESL also came to announce further rules for their event that if you drop out of IEM Chengdu 2025, you will not receive an invite for IEM Krakow, previously known as IEM Cologne. This is a massive deal for a lot of these different teams. Again, you talk about a tenured event and where you would want to be in the future. Those are two definitely to keep in mind. Valve has also updated their announcement as far as changing the rules and regulations to an event to unfairly banning teams away from a lot of these different events. So there's a lot of conversation and consternation, I suppose, about what the future of CS Esports is going to be looking like.
It is, and we hope that they've resolved these issues because we want to see all the teams playing in all the biggest tournaments that they want to compete in. Of course, it helps out with their teams going forward, getting that prize money as well as showing off their skills. So hopefully we can find a resolution from both sides, as well as Valve stepping in to make sure that there's no conflicts of interest between either of the tournament organizers.
PGL, are offering $1.25 million as far as their prize pool is concerned for a massive LAN event, but without the top 10 teams, it would feel almost like a tier 2 tournament. I mean, I'd be here to watch Lin Vision hoist a trophy, but at the end of the day, we know you want to see Vitality, Mouse, you want to see this new GT Esports back up there. Falcon's going to be able to do anything. We saw a very similar situation to this just last season where teams were playing at PGL Astana and then immediately back-to-back for IEM Dallas. And that set up a lot of delays, a lot of fatigue, matches had to be rescheduled, and it's just a lot of travel stress that does not need to happen. So we really do hope that a lot of these big TOs can somehow work their way together to make sure that all these CS tournaments do happen in an orderly fashion, so that way us as the viewers can continue to eat super well. But speaking of upcoming events as well, we got to be talking about Rocket League, of course. If you're unfamiliar, RLCS World Championship is going to be taking place here in Lyon, France. Again, another city there in France getting a major esports event. Rocket League is going to be happening with their World Last Championship team of Team BDS not returning. All of their members but one will now be playing under Team Vitality to make the closest thing to a returning champions at this championship run.
Yeah, and we'll have to see, as you said, France is going to be the ongoing for here. We saw it back in MSI, Canada, in that midseason. Now we're on over to Europe, closing out the year here. And take a look at this Group A. We have Carmine Corp playing off here, Dignitas Wildcard Korea. So many amazing teams will be playing off of the cusp of that Esports World Cup, where we saw some amazing gameplay also.
One returning player that you're going to be watching out for on Carmine Corp, especially, you have the returning members from Team BDS split across a multitude of top players. Here's that Group B. Falcons will be playing the play-in third seed. Space Station Gaming, the dark horse, going up against Vitality, have a very tough round one matchup. And then Team Secret, Twisted Minds, might as well just be happy to be there. But regardless, yeah, it's going to be very, very fun to be able to see what things are going to be included for RLCS as the World Championship continuously will deliver banger after banger. We know that Carmine Corp are the world's #1. Falcons were able to win event as well. So you feel like that going in towards Lyon, France, it's anybody's game. But Counterstrike is also gearing up for another tournament because, of course, they are. We just got done with Blast London. We got to be talking about CS2 Fisher Playground #2. CS2 Fisher Playground Swiss stage is going to be starting this upcoming week on Friday the 12th with Star Ladder Budapest Major coming up soon. This is an important tournament for VRS points, Chris, as teams are looking for the invites.
Yes, and one team that we've been talking in particular about the VRS rating and those points is Team Liquid. They are needing to succeed at this tournament if they want to get a chance to be invited to that Budapest Major as well. So you know they're going to be coming out looking for a win. But again, with everything that's been going on, all the ups and downs for all these teams, I mean, we see this G2 versus Lin Vision. Can G2 continue their form that we saw from this past major?
FaZe versus Pain, Furia versus Liquid. And look, this is now for Liquid, like you were talking about. If they're ever going to make an argument that they need DRS rankings to be able to further their way forward, G2 Esports were able to do it. They just won an entire dang event. So you might as well try to take down Furia. They only took 10 rounds off of G2. It's that easy, Forehead. Might as well try your best. But as we're continuing on throughout the upcoming week, we already talked about it earlier, Dota2 TI, very much so continuing this week.
It is, and it is going to be a massive jump up here. We do have the playoffs starting on the 11th. And that game #1, Extreme versus Tundra. Both of these teams coming out massive. Tundra, one of the top 5 in the power rankings, but Extreme, this Chinese powerhouse coming out, taking the 4-0 in the group stage and just putting everyone to rest. They had a hard schedule as well, making it, but they still took off games, push off Falcons and Team Spirit, so they have come to play and try to win that Aegis for TI. We'll have to see how the rest of the teams pan out because it should be a really good main event.
Enigma Galaxy versus Falcons for a round 2 matchup. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be watching for that potential rematch to be coming through as well. But we have one more tournament that is going to be kicking off this upcoming week. We already got a lot of solidification for teams that are already going to be participating in Worlds. But who is the best in LTA as a whole? LTA Championship is going to be starting this week on the 13th, Chris. Down in Texas, man. It's going to be a very fun time. We got Vivo Keatstars versus FlyQuest, man. Feed me. Feed me more.
Feed me more. Both of these teams coming out strong, but VO Keystars absolutely ran the LTA South elimination rounds, getting that world spot. FlyQuest did falter a little bit versus 100 Thieves. And speaking of that 100 Thieves, they are going to want to make their way to Worlds once more and maybe for the last time in League of Legends. But first, they'll have to take down Pain Gaming. Can they continue their heist to get to Worlds? We'll have to see this weekend at the LTA Championship. If you're headed to Texas, have a lot of fun because it should be some banger matches.
Yeah, make sure that you drop as many photos as possible on the timeline at me and Chris so we can watch all of the action vicariously through your cell phones. We're going to be watching that gearing up this upcoming weekend on top of Dota, Fisher Playground. We got so much more action just going on this upcoming week. But what are you most in store for? Why don't you let me know in the comments down below, and as always, subscribe to the Global Gaming Network channel so that you can follow along with us on a week-to-week basis. Whether it's queued up Into the Smoke or for some MOBA action or just for a rapid recap, we'll see you in the next one.